Half is it up on René Auberjonois. Welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please. Could Jake James, please make yourself known to a member of staff or attend the reception desk located in the foyer at the front of the arena. Thank you.
I will give 50 quid to the first person who can reach that announcer and wring his neck. Do we have anyone? Guys, were either of you... He's texting.
I just tweeted, yeah.
And it'll now have gone viral. You're everywhere in space and time. Were either of you hesitant about taking a part in a Star Trek franchise, or was it the opposite, where you were utterly thrilled that you were going to be part of it because some actors just want to act and have nothing to do with conventions? Did that come into your mind at all, or were you happy to do it instantly?
Well, it wasn't about the conventions. It wasn't that, you didn't want to do conventions, but there was a feeling at the time that if you did science fiction, you labeled yourself and you'd never work again. I had a manager at the time who said, absolutely do not do this. But reading the script and hearing what the role was, it was too desirous. I had to do it, and I lost the manager.
I was already old. Seriously, I was in my 50s. I had my career, but I had two children who were growing up and were both going to university, which is very expensive in the United States. And so I remember when my wife said, "So how are we going to pay for this?" And I said, "Well, I guess I'll have to get a series." And so I was delighted to get this series. And I was not worried about being typecast because I'd already done a series in which I'd played some kind of nitwit character on Benson. And so, I just thought, well, this is great. And I was thrilled. And then it ended up being just a wonderful job with wonderful people, wonderful folks to work with, wonderful actors, and great script. And then
this part.
Yeah, and so then, and
remarkable.
Conventions, you mentioned about, conventions were really the sort of icing on the cake, because one of the things about being in a television series is that you get very sort of isolated in a weird way. And everybody's like, "Oh, you're wonderful, you're wonderful, you're wonderful." But it's all within this little nucleus, this tight little group. And Star Trek and the conventions, and now it's spread for other shows, but they were the original people to get you out to actually meet the people who made it possible for you to make a living and to talk to people. So that's been, you get that in the theater because the audience is there just like you are here, but not in film and television. And so to get the chance to come out and communicate with the very people that have made it all possible is a real gift. Better mics? Let's all change mics.
Now, I know it was a long time ago when you were doing the pilot, but did you feel that there was any pressure from the studio, that pressure put on you guys to make this show work? Did you feel any form of pressure, or was it just a natural thing, you go in and do a pilot?
No one can put more pressure on you than you put on yourself. And I think we felt that. I know that, because from the very beginning, our characters were meant to be very much, united, and certainly not end up being lovers, but in the beginning, you know, she was the only person that Odo trusted, and so my character was always tied to Major Kira in a way, and I've totally forgotten what I'm talking about.
You've answered the question. It was wonderful.
Yeah, that we put more pressure. I really wasn't aware of the studio at all. And it was the first time, because usually if you're doing a sitcom or something like that, you know when the suits come and stand there and see if you're funny or not, and have their usually useless comments to make, and things happen, and it's never better. But I didn't feel their presence on the show at all. I felt the writer's presence very, very heavily, and Rick Berman's, and the biggest presence was you guys, because, you know, we had such...
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. Could Dylan O'Brien, that's Dylan O'Brien, please report to the reception desk located at the front of the arena, or make yourself known to a member of staff. Thank you.
Wouldn't it be funny if he had no official business at all? It's just some guy with a microphone. he's just
Ladies and gentlemen.
But I was saying, it was, you know, we had the pressure of, you better make everything real. Don't just push, you know, random buttons. Know what you're doing when you're operating things, because they will watch. It was always
that was so freaky. We were shooting the pilot, and so none of us had ever been exposed to the convention scene, and Miles O'Brien came up to me and said, I can't do a convention in Chicago, because he'd been on Next Generation. You know, I'm forgetting his name. Anyway, Colm Meaney. Oh God, I hope he hears about this. I do, I love to get, anyway. So he asked me to go to this convention in Chicago. I said, they won't know anything about me, or, you know, who I am. Or he said, trust me, they'll know more about it than you do. And it was real scary. I mean, because there was a sense of, because we hadn't yet been seen or had proven ourselves, you know, the crowd was sort of like measuring to see if, you know, this weird nitwit was going to play a regular character on their beloved Star Trek. But I think Nana's right on it, that's why that was the main pressure for us, not from the studio, because Star Trek was a proven commodity, so they sort of trusted that was going to be okay, because the brand was so strong. But it was whether we were going to be able to fill the shoes. And the truth is, our show was not immediately everybody's cup of tea, because it was dark and neurotic and not as sort of positive, forward-looking as it came out of a different time. It came out of a period in Los Angeles at the time when there had been riots and burning, and that would influence the writing of the original script, and so it was much darker and you know, not as hopeful, right? Yeah. So, but we grew on people. We're still not everybody's cup of tea, but we're the best.
When did you, did you think at the time when you were doing it that the show would end up initially being the best? Did you think it'd be a success?
I just do that to tease the other guys.
Did we sense that it would turn out? You know, when they did a showing of the pilot for us, I had no idea what we were doing.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. Could Dylan O'Brien,
Come on, Dylan.
Please report to the reception desk located at the front of the main arena, or make yourself known to any member of staff. Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm going down to the front desk. I'll be back in 10 minutes.
We had a question there. I forgot what we were answering, but we have a question, yeah?
I just wondered if René could tell us more about the Medicine Sans Frontières stuff, if possible. The what? There's Doctors Without Borders, Medicine Sans Frontières.
Oh, Doctors Without Borders. Yeah, that's a nice question. Yeah, gosh, how many years ago when we started going to conventions, and I always felt a little bit uncomfortable, it's my Swiss puritanical whatever, about people paying money for me to sign my name. I thought that's, now I like it, but at the time I was a little uncomfortable about it. So I remember saying to Armin Shimmerman, I said, I should get a charity that I can, and he suggested Doctors Without Borders. He was doing, I think, Amnesty International, and thanks to him, many years ago, I started, drawing Odo buckets and cartoons and things to raise money for Doctors Without Borders, and it's an extraordinary organization, and it really becomes. I'm not sure. Yeah, I was going to say I'm not sure I would keep doing conventions, but I'm lying. Without also being able to feel like I was doing something that helped on something else. Anyway, I don't mean to sound totally altruistic. I get to come and have these great trips, but I also get to raise money for Doctors Without Borders. So if you come by, I'll draw you a cartoon. You can make a donation, because it's a great organization, and you may, if you follow the news, be aware that in the last couple of weeks they sustained a tragic accident. A hospital of theirs in Afghanistan was bombed by mistake by our government, and many people lost their lives, doctors and patients in Afghanistan. It was a terrible, terrible thing to have happen. It's one of those things that war brings upon us as human beings. Anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about cheerful things. Sorry.
What were your feelings, Nana, on the romance between Kira and Odo when you got that script and it? What was your initial?
Initially, because I knew that we would be doing scenes together, which was my favorite thing on the show, to work with René. Anyway, whether it was a romance or not, I didn't see a lot of friendships on television between men and women, and I really loved that there could be a friendship without romance. So I was a little disappointed. I felt like they were going the way of all TV shows where, oh, they're friends, oh, they're fighting, oh, now it's a romance. So I thought it was a bit cliche, but in the end, I loved the relationship.
But he could make things grow.
What?
He could make things grow. Obviously, she would love a relationship with a shapeshifter.
Well, I gotta say that I felt the same when that was, we both sort of went, yeah, really? And I think the only reason it worked ultimately was because it wasn't something they knew was going to happen. So they were as on thin ice as well in terms of, is this really a good idea? Is this going to work? How can we make this work? It was not anything they had planned. It was something that they started to see because we enjoyed working together so much. And fuck off.
This is a customer announcement for Rhiannon O'Brien. Please report to reception. That is Rhiannon O'Brien. Please report to reception. Thank you.
Is that Miles O'Brien to reception?
Miles O'Brien. It's Miles O'Brien. Anyway, yeah. And so I think that it only worked ultimately because they were inventing it as they went along. It wasn't like part of the mythology, and so that it had something that was like, it was a relationship, but it was never a relationship that could work ultimately. So in the seeds of it was its own demise. because people were like, oh, he went away. How could he do that? Yeah, well, that had to happen. It just was written in the sand, not in the writer's minds. And so it happened. That made it interesting.
Yeah.
That chap there.
I was just wondering, what was the best bit of advice you had from any of the Next Generation cast or the original cast when you first started Deep Space Nine?
I got no advice. No, not at all.
They were so, they were lovely and welcoming, and Patrick was sweet, and Brent is a friend I'd known before. Actually, Brent took over a role that I created on a Broadway musical, and when I left it, he took over. So we've known each other for years and everything. And then of course, Frakes came to direct, and LeVar, and everybody was sweet, and they were fun. But they were having so much fun over there. They were just the cat's pajamas, and they could do nothing wrong, and they broke up, and they were laughing and carrying on, and ours
Meanwhile,
was so serious. And it's really from the captain on down. And our captain was deadly serious, and it was not a lot of laughs on the set. It was dark and serious, and people always want to know about what wonderful practical jokes did we play. Not many. It was not a lot of laughs.
No.
It was serious stuff.
And it was, we had really heavy, scenes to do. Certainly my character, there was something tragic going on all the time for her. Really. So there wasn't a lot of lightness.
We were all neurotic. All the characters had some terrible thing going on. But it's like some awful thing was about to happen to all of us at any given moment.
Well,
So,
yeah.
it wasn't. It was great work, but it was not like a lot of fun. Well, I know. I only now, in retrospect, really realize how enervating the makeup was. The makeup was, and that's. See, women live with that all the time, where you had only a little nose thing, but you were still a beautiful woman who had to always present this beautiful mask. You couldn't and so for the male version of it is to have a complete prosthetic over your face for hours on end, and you can't move around a lot, you can't chew gum, you can fart. That's about all you can do. But you can't eat solid food, or you're always being repaired. People are always fixing you, and they're doing that to women, but for another reason. And it enervating, and René, you poor guy.
And also it was like if you've ever had jet lag where you feel like you're going to just fall face down, you're that tired. We were that way for 7 years. Yeah. We were exhausted beyond belief for 7 years. But beside that part of it, it was so great.
That chap.
Thank you. Just wondering, did you have any favorite episode or anything like that? Or?
I do have a favorite episode. I loved, for the writing, I was so impressed with Duet, because they'd run out of money. They'd spent all their money on the pilot and all these things, and they just needed a cheap show without any special effects. And they wrote this and they called them bottle shows. Just, this very few characters. They're not going to pay a lot of overtime. Just a quick show to get one in that's not costly. And it was Duet. And I just was so impressed with the beautiful writing. That's one of my favorite shows. You?
No, I don't have a favorite show. I gather, as the years go by, that one of the shows that people respond to very positively was Far Beyond the Stars, which was the one where we were all out of makeup, actually. You know, I haven't seen the show since we shot it. I have not seen an episode of it in how many years now? 20, I mean, a long time. And I didn't really watch it while we were shooting it because I was shooting it. So I don't have that. I mean, there were some scenes and things that were fun and interesting to do, but it's all like one big story to me. I'm always amazed that I can tell you the title, or that Nana can remember. I don't remember the titles of the shows. They all just became one big, so I don't have a favorite.
So if you've done a TV, do you not bother to watch it when it's broadcast?
I rarely watched it when it broadcast. In the beginning, I watched it, and friends would come over. I remember sitting with a friend watching an episode that we'd shot, and I'm watching it, and he's sitting there. He's a very, very bright and erudite guy, and he was sitting there watching it, and our characters were talking, and all in these makeups and everything, and he was totally unfamiliar with Star Trek, and he was watching it one day, and again, you'll excuse me, but he said, "What the fuck are you talking about?" He had no idea what it was. We were talking gibberish as far as he was concerned. But that's the way it is.
If you've done a TV, do you intentionally watch yourself to see the final product? Not just Star Trek, anything.
I do for the most part, but I find it painful. I don't like it. It's jarring and horrible for whatever reason. I was watching Game of Thrones with my son Django. We were watching, and then his dad, Alexander Siddig, got hired, and it was like, oh shit, that's it then. That's it for me. Because even it's just jarring to see someone you know. You know, it takes you right. And I was in the fantasy of Game of Thrones, and then to see an ex-husband, it just kind of ruins it all.
Shall I email you when it's his death episode?
Let me know, would you?
Okay. That gentleman there.
Hi guys, a couple of questions for you. The first one is, have either of you been approached to be involved with the new movies? And the second question for Nana, how did you feel about your evil alter ego and stuff?
How did I feel about the Intendant? I loved the Intendant. I loved that character. I didn't love the costume. It was a pain in the neck. But I loved everything else about her. It was so fun to psychologically flip Kira. That was really, I feel right now that I'm the alternate universe Cruella de Vil is what I'm going for at the moment. Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. But it's just so fun to flip a character like that. It was great. And I think I kissed every single member of our cast as the Intendant.
Not me.
No,
I got blown up.
You got blown up very quickly.
I was Jello. They had jelly inside of a little character that looked like me.
See, you do remember.
Yeah.
You're just kidding on.
Well, that's all I remember.
The other question, have you been approached or have you involved with the other movies?
No, never. You maybe.
What, the
To do the movies, yeah. No.
Oh, I can't imagine why. But, you know, no, I don't think so. I'm not waiting by the phone for a call.
Another question. Oh.
My question's for René. I just want to know if you enjoyed your scenes with Quark.
Quark. Now, who was Quark? You know, Armin and I knew each other before. I didn't know Nana. And Armin and I had actually been in a play together. So we knew each other. We weren't bosom buddies or anything, but we knew each other from that experience. And then when we started work on the show, and it became clear that our characters were, actually, it was even in the pilot that they were always sort of at each other, and the classic kind of, it's in all the shows, they have that dynamic happens. And so we had that. And but what became clear quickly was that we both, because we had the same kind of training, he's younger than I am, but we had come through the same regional repertory theater companies, doing many shows, a lot of theater. We had training, we had a very similar way of working. So that made it, we had a lot of shorthand, but we both knew that we liked to really rehearse a lot with each other, and so that was wonderful. And working with other actors on the show, then it's a whole different way. Oh, when I work with this person, it's all more at the last moment and not, like Sid, when he would have a scene, you would never rehearse it before. You would just come in and meet each other and do it. So anyway, Armin and I really enjoyed working together, and our friendship just grew and grew because we spent so much time working together. And he's still a dear, dear friend, and his wife Kitty, and we just had dinner with them, a couple of weeks ago. And as it is with Nana, whenever we're in New York, we're sure to see each other. That's not, like working in an office. You may have friends in the office, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be your friends outside of life, in your other life. So it's the same way with a television show. I will forever be friends with all those people, but then it's really only Nana and Armin that are the friends that I still see on a regular basis. They're my friends. I will have to call them and tell them, oh, I'm in town, or can we do this? And sorry, that was a long, rambling answer.
It wasn't rambling, it was wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, please show your appreciation to Nana and René!